I, Travis Argue, chair of the live virtual State Plumbing Board meeting of August 19th, 2021, called to order at 9:30 a.m. We'll do the roll call, please, Debbie.
Thank you. Travis Argue, chair.
Here.
Matthew Roselle, vice chair, is excused. Craig Anderson.
Here.
Corey Fraser.
Here.
Thank you, Corey. Melissa Gett. Here. Molly Keller. Here. Joe Leibold.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, the next thing is the approval of the amended agenda and order of business. Is there any members that have additional changes or amendments to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. I chair Argue rule the amended agenda and order of business approved. Next is the approval of the draft meeting. Any members, if they have any changes to the meeting minutes? If none, I chair Argue rule the draft meeting minutes of June 17th, 2021 final. Our next date of a meeting is October 21, 21. Andy, is there anybody that would want to make a public address?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Andy Boulton, policy analyst with the division. We've not received any requests for general public comment, but we're going to hold the line open for just a moment here to see if anyone is dialed in who would like to make general public comment to the board. At this time, if you're on the line and would like to make a general public comment, please unmute yourself and state your name and affiliation for the record. All right. Hearing none, Mr. Chair, that concludes general public comment.
Thank you, sir. All right, next is the program update with Mr. Skinner.
Thank you, Chair Argue, members of the board. For the record, my name is Andy Skinner. I'm the Plumbing Program Chief for the State of Oregon Building Codes Division. I want to say good morning to everybody. I have a couple of update things. First, I want to say it was communicated last week to the division from IAPMO that the books will be in their warehouse sometime this week to next week. You can go online to the Builder's Bookstore and pre-order at this time. They have it up on their website. So we're getting closer, yay. Hopefully those will be available within the next couple of weeks. The other couple things I have for the board today is first, please join the division in welcoming Michael Mayorga-Hamilton. Michael is one of our new CCRs. We'll hear from him a little bit later. He comes to us back in May and came out of California where he worked for the California Fair or Political Practices Commission. Worked there for about 6 years. And kind of in his downtime, he enjoys fishing, hiking, and geocaching. I had to look that one up, so wasn't quite sure what geocaching was, but now I'm informed. So again, please welcome Michael. The other one I wanted to just kind of give the board an update on, we did in enforcement have one of our CCRs on a rotational. That was Sarah Bland-Linville, and she is back with us. So the enforcement section has a full house again, which is great. That's always helpful, especially as we transition into being able to get out into the field again and make our presence. So that's all I have for the board today. Are there any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. All right, next is the legislative update with Mr. Andy Boulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy Boulton, policy analyst for the division. I'm here to present the legislative update. Oregon's regular 2021 legislative session began in January of 2021, and it came to an end on June 26, 2021. There were many bills this session which affected Building Codes Division. The purpose of this update is to provide a high-level overview of those bills which we thought would be of most interest to the board. In your packet, you'll find a copy of the bills we discussed today. There is a lot of information within these bills, but I will provide a high-level overview along with a quick summary of the division's next steps. There are also 12 other bills that are significant to the division, but not directly relating to the State Plumbing Board. And in the interest of time, we will not discuss the second group of bills, but they are in your packet if you are interested in reading more about them. All right, without further ado, I'll kick it off. First up is Senate Bill 866 on program delegation. SB 866 corrects issues identified by the Oregon Department of Justice relating to program delegation. This bill permits a municipality or the Department of Consumer and Business Services to contract with a person to administer and enforce a building inspection program and to act as a building official. The bill further specifies conditions under which a municipality may procure services from a contract building official. It will take effect on January 1st, 2022. This bill will be implemented through rulemaking, training, enforcement, and when necessary, assumption of a building inspection program. The bill has been signed into law. The RAC is scheduled for August 30th. Invitations have gone out to the prior RAC for program delegation, and we have provided public notice and an invitation to those on our Gov delivery list. The division is also working to develop a training program for qualified employees and contract building officials who can now approve commercial building inspections. For the qualified employee, there will be 2 trainings, basic training taken before the exercise of oversight over a contract building official, and an advanced training completed within 180 days after a municipality's designation of the individual as a qualified employee. Next up, we have House Bill 2415 on electronic processes. Section 1 of this bill requires DCBS to adopt rules to establish minimum standards and statewide consistency in electronic processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. This section of the bill will take effect on September 25th, 2021, 91 days after adjournment signing up. Sections 2 and 3, the remainder of the bill, do not become operative until January 1st, 2025. The new law requires municipalities that administer and enforce building inspections programs to use the department's electronic system for access to building codes information, or to use a system that is equivalent to the department's system. It also requires municipalities that administer and enforce building inspection programs to meet the minimum standards that the department adopts, regardless of whether the municipality uses an equivalent system. Section 1 of the bill requires DCBS to adopt rules and establish minimum standards and statewide consistency in electronic processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. As summer construction season comes to a close, the division will form a rulemaking advisory committee, or RAC, to assist in the development of these rules. The rules are expected to be implemented once sufficient input has been received from the RAC. To prepare for the new law outlined in sections 2 and 3, DCBS intends to utilize the RAC discussed above. The RAC can help us explore terminology in the bill, such as the definition of electronic field inspection, and it can offer other ideas related to rulemaking. In addition, we may pursue pilot programs to iron out details for the system. Meetings will take place with the contractors and building officials to seek additional ideas. We hope to iron out the rules related to this section of the bill in 2023, with the goal of allowing municipalities to create their own system by January 1st, 2025. In sum, this bill will result in immediate and long-term rulemaking and further development of electronic processes. Next up is Senate Bill 762. This is the wildfire bill. The bill is pretty extensive and is summarized as follows. In your packet, you'll notice that the portions relating directly to BCD are in bold, but you will not be able to tell from the tone of my voice. Directs the Public Utility Commission to convene workshops, requires public utility that provides electricity to have a wildfire protection plan, provides that violation is subject to civil penalty, not to exceed $10,000. Requires consumer-owned utility to have a wildfire mitigation plan. Directs the State Board of Forestry to establish criteria for developing and maintaining a wildfire risk map, a statewide map of wildfire risk that displays wildfire risk classes. Those risk classes are further defined in this amendment as extreme, high, moderate, low, and no risk. The map is to be populated into the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer, which must be made publicly available in an electronic format. Oregon State University is to be consulted during the establishment of wildfire risk classes, and the university is to develop and maintain the map. In developing the wildfire risk classes, there is an opportunity for public input, and wildfire risk class assignments can be appealed. The map has to be completed by June 30th, 2022. Declares the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer the official wildfire planning and risk classification mapping tool for the state. Directs the State Board of Forestry to establish a certified burn manager program and report to the Legislative Assembly on or before December 1st, 2021. Directs the State Fire Marshal to establish defensible space requirements, administer community risk education program, and biannually report to the Legislative Assembly, State Wildfire Program Director, and Wildfire Programs Advisory Council. Establishes Community Risk Reduction Fund and the State Treasury. Directs Department of Land Conservation and Development to identify certain land use updates and to provide a report on or before October 1st, 2022. Directs DCBS to adopt certain building code standards for extreme and high wildfire risk classes in the wildland-urban interface that are identified in Section 7 of the bill. DCBS must adopt wildfire hazard mitigation building code standards that apply to new dwellings and accessory structures of dwellings as described in Section R327 of the 2021 Oregon Residential Specialty Code. Those actions must take place by October 1st, 2022. The standards cannot become operative before April 1st, 2023, and the standards must be incorporated into any updates of the ORSC. DCBS must amend Section R327 of the Oregon Residential Specialty Code to include standards for additions to existing dwellings and accessory structures, and for the replacement of existing exterior elements covered in current R327. These actions must take place by October 1st, 2022, and the standards cannot become operative before April 1st, 2023, and the standards must be incorporated into any updates to the ORSC. No more than 2 years after the standards stated in those first two bullet points above are adopted, DCBS must update Section R327 of the ORSC to accomplish certain requirements of the bill. DCBS must develop and maintain an interactive mapping tool that displays at a property level wildfire hazard mitigation standards covered in Section R327 of the ORSC. The tool must be designed to support future inclusion of snow load, seismic, and wind building code standards at the property level. The tool must also be developed not more than 60 days after the statewide map of wildfire risk described above is developed. DCBS must collaborate with OSU to obtain any needed info from the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer and national or scientific-based sources in order to develop the tool. DCBS must ensure that the tool is displayed in electronic format and available to the public at no charge, and DCBS must periodically update the tool when the relevant building code is updated. DCBS may enter into an agreement with OSU concerning services required to develop and maintain the tool. The bill directs Department of Environmental Quality to undertake programs concerning impacts of wildfire smoke, readiness and mitigation capacity, smoke and ambient air quality. Directs the Department of Human Services to establish a grant program related to clean air shelters and smoke filtration systems, and report to the Legislative Assembly, State Wildfire Programs Director, and Wildfire Programs Advisory Council no later than June 30th, 2023. Directs the Office of Emergency Management to update the state emergency plan to prepare for or respond to wildfire emergencies. Directs the State Forestry Department to implement a program to reduce wildfire risk. Report to the Legislative Assembly, Governor, State Wildfire Programs Director, and Wildfire Programs Advisory Council no later than January 15th, 2022 and July 15th, 2023. Establish small forest land grant program, adopt certain rules concerning prescribed fires, establish a system of smoke detection cameras, and assess and improve wildfire response capacity. Establishes the Oregon Conservation Corps program and Oregon Conservation Corps Advisory Committee. Establishes Oregon Conservation Corps Fund in the state treasury. Makes certain changes concerning wildfire urban interface. Directs the governor to appoint the state wildfire programs director. Establishes the Wildfire Programs Advisory Council. Requires the council to annually report to the governor and the Legislative Assembly. DCBS must provide 15% of the time of full-time equivalent employee to cooperatively staff the council, attend council meetings as an informational resource, assist with drafting reports at the request of the council, and to support the work of the state wildfire programs director. For certain entities, for specified purposes, appropriates money for from the general fund, increases appropriations from the general fund, and increases limitations on expenditures. Declares an emergency, and the bill is effective on passage. Rulemaking and code work will likely be in full swing in the summer of 2022. Updated codes will likely take effect October 1st, 2022, with a 6-month phase-in to April 1st, 2023. Then within 2 years, by October 1st, 2024, we will update Section R327 in accordance with the requirements of the bill. We'll also develop and maintain an interactive mapping tool that will collaborate with Oregon State University. Further, we'll be available to participate in the Wildfire Programs Advisory Council. Deep breath. Next up, we have House Bill 2560 on remote meetings and testimony. This bill requires a governing body of a public body to the extent reasonably possible to make all meetings accessible remotely to members of the general public through technological means, and to provide an opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony when the type of testimony is allowed in person. The bill imposes the same requirements on hearings under ORS chapters 197 and 215. It takes effect on January 1st, 2022. For the Building Codes Division, this means we will continue to keep our meetings accessible remotely to the general public, and will allow remote, oral, and written testimony in all situations where that type of testimony is allowed in person. Next up, House Bill 2992, compensation to board members. The bill modifies the amount of compensation paid to members of state boards and commissioners. It also requires state boards and commissioners to pay, requires state boards and commissions to pay compensation and expenses to certain members with an adjusted gross income below a certain threshold. The bill provides that members may decline to accept compensation or reimbursement. It will take effect on the 91st day following adjournment sine die, September 25th, 2021. Communication to our board members about this new law and a letter to each board member with additional details is how BCD will be proceeding. Finally, we have House Bill 2062. This is an Oregon Department of Energy bill, and we actually have Blake Shelide from the Oregon Department of Energy, who is kind enough to join us to talk more about this bill, so I'm going to hand it off to him.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
Great. No, thanks, Andy. Good morning, Board Chair Argue and members of the Plumbing Board. My name is Blake Shelide. I'm a facilities engineer with the Oregon Department of Energy and a member of the Construction Industry Energy Board, where I've worked with some of you on this board on energy-related code issues. So thanks to BCD, Administrator Cox, and Andy for a great overview of the measures that came out of the recent legislative session, and for the opportunity to provide more information on House Bill 2062. In general, House Bill 2062 creates new energy efficiency standards for a number of products, including certain plumbing fittings, and includes a role for the state code boards and the plumbing board. So just for kind of a brief background, the Oregon Department of Energy coordinates with local partners, other states, and national experts to administer and review the minimum state energy efficiency standards for products and to evaluate opportunities to update existing standards or adopt new standards to promote energy conservation in Oregon, to achieve cost effectiveness for consumers, or as the result of federal action or the outcome of collaborative discussions with manufacturers in other states. These standards generally set efficiency requirements for a product to be sold or installed in Oregon. While some appliance efficiency standards are set at the federal level, there are also products that do not yet have a national standard and for which a state standard could achieve meaningful energy and water savings and greenhouse gas reductions. Oregon has periodically enacted appliance efficiency standards as a method for saving consumers money and saving energy. In 2005, Oregon established its first appliance energy efficiency standards for 11 product categories and subsequently added 6 new standards in 2007, 3 more in 2013, and then most recently, 9 new standards and 2 updated standards in 2021 through House Bill 2062. Often, federal standards are later modeled after state standards that were enacted at the state level, and once adopted at the federal level, federal standards generally preempt state standards. There have been a couple of recent executive orders providing our department, the Oregon Department of Energy, with some direction on state standards. Executive Order 1720 in 2017, which ODO worked on with BCD and other state agencies, directed ODO to identify categories of products for improved efficiency, and after researching other state activity and conducting outreach to stakeholders and industry, ODO issued a report in November 2018 and identified a suite of established standards that could potentially apply for Oregon. And then more recently, in March of 2020, Governor Brown signed Executive Order 20-04, directing the state of Oregon agencies to take action to reduce and regulate greenhouse gas emissions toward meeting reduction goals of at least 45% below 1990 emissions levels by 2035 and at least 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. And in addition to those general directives for state agencies, this executive order built upon the directives of Executive Order 1720 and provided a specific list of products for ODO to establish energy efficiency standards at least to levels equivalent to the most stringent standards among West Coast jurisdictions. So to implement this executive order in 2020, ODO hosted multiple rounds of stakeholder engagement and outreach, conducted rulemaking, and filed the final rules on August 28th of 2020. And these rules are effective on September 1st of this year. In total, ODO's 2020 rulemaking adopted 11 standards, including 9 new standards and 2 updated standards. All of the new standards for Oregon are already established in other locations and align with standards and product definitions already in place in other West Coast states and multiple other states around the country. And most of the Oregon standards will apply to products that are manufactured after January 1st of 2022. An important note is that this effective date is based on the date of manufacture, so existing inventory and stock of products manufactured before that date may still continue to be sold, and any existing equipment may remain in service. For plumbing fittings, including shower heads and faucets, as well as demand response capable water heaters, the definitions and standards that apply for these products were established through this ODO's 2020 public rulemaking process. This can be viewed in Oregon Administrative Rule, Chapter 330, Division 92, and these definitions and standards are all identical to the definitions and standards among the other West Coast states. The alignment of standards and definitions, we think, is critical in standard settings to provide market consistency and predictability for distributors, suppliers, and manufacturers. And an important note is that the definitions established as part of the efficiency standards process only apply to the standard section of statute and the administrative rule and don't extend to other portions of state regulations such as the building codes. So, after covering our administrative rulemaking in 2020, kind of as previously described, as part of executive order implementation, ODO adopted efficiency standards for those 11 products through administrative rule. And then in this most recent legislative session, House Bill 2062 conformed the statute to those recently adopted rules. And this is a process that's specified in statute, where if our agency adopts rules, then the next step is legislation to conform statute to those rules. These new standards in general will save Oregonians money, promote energy conservation, and reduce energy and water use and greenhouse gas emissions, and also align West Coast market standards. These standards are estimated to lead to nearly $30 million of annual energy cost savings for Oregonians in 2025 and to nearly $100 million in savings by 2035. Just other general aspects of House Bill 2062, it implemented housekeeping measures to remove from statute those existing state standards that have been preempted by federal standards since they were originally established for Oregon. And then finally, House Bill 2062 provided ODO, in consultation with DCBS, Building Codes Division advisory boards, the limited authority to administratively update standards to a more recent version only for products with existing Oregon standards. So our agency will conduct administrative rulemaking this year to implement the changes that were made in House Bill 2062. And we certainly encourage anyone who's interested to sign up to receive email updates on our website for this upcoming rulemaking. And the primary purpose of this rulemaking is primarily just to clean up and reorganize and renumber our rules to match with the order that they're listed in statute for clarity. Part of the rulemaking will also involve a proposed update to Oregon standards for computer and computer monitors to match with updates in other states and ensure market consistency. But ODO is not proposing, and there aren't any plans to update any of the standards associated with the standards or the definitions or the requirements for any of the plumbing related products. And we do look forward certainly to collaboration and consultation with your board and the other appropriate boards for all the future proposed updates to the plumbing related products if they do come down the line, but we don't have any plans for those now. So in summary, Chair Argue, members of the board, thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time, and I'm also certainly available in the future if you do have any other comments or questions on product efficiency standards in our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Is there any questions for Blake? All right. Thank you, sir. Next, we will move on to Mr. Andy Skinner.
Thank you, Chair Argue. For the record, my name is Andy Skinner, Plumbing Program Chief. I believe this one needs to kind of get handed off to Michael for the late submissions on the enforcement cases.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. Oh, sorry.
You're good. Go ahead.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Michael Mayorga-Hamilton, contested case representative for the division. Prior to beginning, I'd like to make two corrections to the matrix for the record. First, in the matter of Renaissance Holding LLC, it is listed as C202036. The correct case number is C202035. And then in the matter of Robert Hardin, C202036, the violation on the matrix is listed as allowing unlicensed individuals to perform plumbing work. It should be listed as a violation for failing to hold a valid Oregon journeyman plumber's license. So before the board is a summary of consent orders recently negotiated by the division on behalf of the board. We've entered into consent agreements in 3 cases since our last board meeting. All of these settlements, including the amount owed and suspended civil penalties, fall within the guidelines on the matrix, and they contain the standard conditions. Board approval or denial is required on these cases. The first case on the agenda is C2020-10 in the matter of Jesus David Mendez, ABN Cascade Remodel. On or about December 2018 through February 2019 at a residence located in Salem, Oregon, Mr. Mendez installed water lines for a new dishwasher and an outdoor water hose faucet without any of the following: a journeyman plumber's license, a plumbing contractor's license, and a valid plumbing permit. Then from on about or about June 2019 through July 22nd, 2019, at a residence in Salem, Oregon, Mr. Mendez installed a utility sink, faucet, drain, and water supply line for a new dishwasher without a journeyman plumber's license, a plumbing contractor's license, and a valid plumbing permit. The total penalty assessed in the notice was $6,000. The amount being suspended for 5 years pursuant to the consent order is $4,000, with respondent agreeing to pay $2,000. The second case on the agenda is C 2020-35 in the matter of Renaissance Holding LLC, which is connected to the third facility discussing. From on or about February 2020 until on or about March 2020, respondent permitted employees to install water supply and drain pipes at a residence located in Portland without a valid Oregon journeyman plumber's license. Furthermore, the respondent did not have a contractor's license or a permit to perform the work at the property. The penalty assessed in the notice was $6,000. The amount being suspended pursuant to consent order is $5,000, with respondent agreeing to pay $1,000. Is C 2020-36 in the matter of Robert Hardin. From on or about February 2020 until on or about March 2020, respondent installed water supply and drain pipes at a residence located in Portland without a valid journeyman plumber's license. The total penalty assessed in the notice was $2,000, and the amount being suspended for 5 years pursuant to the consent order is $1,500, with respondent agreeing to pay $500. I'm available now to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I don't have any questions. Would any of the board members? Okay. So this evidently requires a motion. So it says here that you may assist in the board in the motion. Would you like to go ahead and promote or do that?
So you can choose to take actions on all the agreements as a whole or on each individual agreement separately.
Okay. All right. I make a motion that we take action on all of them, that we approve with the recommendations and move forward with the matrix. Is there any questions on this motion? All right. Hearing none, I'll go ask Debbie for a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Joe Rebold,
Aye.
Molly Keller,
Aye.
thank you, Molly. Melissa Gett,
Aye.
Corey Fraser,
Aye.
Craig Anderson,
Aye.
and Chair Travis Argue.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Debbie. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, there is no communications, there are no appeals, there is no unfinished business. So the next one is new business. Let's see, Mr. Andy Boulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy Boulton, Policy Analyst of the Division. Last month, the Continuing Education Committee reviewed 21 applications from 7 organizations. 13 courses were recommended for approval. 3 courses were not recommended for approval. And 5 instructors were recommended for approval. There is a matrix detailing all 21 applications in your board packet. This item will require a motion on whether to approve the committee's recommendations regarding continuing education.
Thank you, Andy. I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve the committee's recommendation for approval and or denial of courses and instructors. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll ask Debbie to do the roll again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Rebold,
Aye.
Molly Keller,
Aye.
Melissa Gett,
Aye.
Corey Fraser,
Aye.
Craig Anderson,
Aye.
Chair Travis Argue.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, there are no announcements. And the next is the adjournment. at 10:04. Thanks, everyone.